agreed to, and I give the call to the member for Goldstein.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and it's, like many members, a mixture of emotions to speak on a motion such as this, because many Australians have had lives that have been touched by the sad and tragic early passing of their friends or family as a consequence of suicide. As those who may have previously watched this chamber before may know that sadly my brother-in-law committed suicide a few years ago, and I know that other people have had similar experiences, and that's why it's so difficult to talk about this issue. But it's also the reason we need to talk about this issue, Deputy Speaker, because tragically suicide is the leading cause of death in people, particularly between the ages of 15 and 24 and 25 and 44 since 2016-2018, and we know that because of consequence of mental health problems and other pressures in people's lives, that increasingly people feel more fragile, and as a consequence they're taking their last resort as what they seem to be a legitimate pathway. But suicide is never a legitimate pathway, whatever the difficulty that people face, and it's incumbent on the rest of us to do whatever we can do to support those who are facing difficulty. And it's particularly prescient, Deputy Speaker, at this time, because we know in the great state of Victoria right now, during its fourth lockdown, the pressures of mental health challenges that many Victorians are facing right now are significant. In fact, only earlier this afternoon, I was chatting to a constituent and friend of mine who wanted to talk about an unrelated matter, but I asked him how things were going within the community, and he talked about his wife and how she had recently, and I mean recently meaning in the past 24 hours, had a work colleague who'd committed suicide. And of course that has an impact on her and her family, but also of course the broader community. And another tragic life has been needlessly lost because of the pressures that people face. Now, I'm not seeking to blame that on anyone in particular. I'm just trying to make the observation that this is sadly a common occurrence that occurred during the last lockdown, where a number of people that I know, including a number within the Goldstein community, I'm sure it's replicated elsewhere, and I see other members from Victoria here as well, have confronted the reality of people within their community, and sometimes, often people who seem to do well and are not somebody who we would normally say are struggling or coping, but because they might be running a successful small business or may even be a proud parent, faced with darker demons or other challenges within their lives, or may have been brought about as a consequence of the lockdown, have made a choice, a fatal choice. And I know certainly my husband Ryan had a former colleague who took that option. I also know that some local small business people who couldn't see their pathway out during a gruelling three-month lockdown, the impact that it would have on them and whether they were going to be able to rebuild as they watched their lives disappear in front of them, and the reward of their hard work and entire life disappear in front of them. Of course, we know that there are many programs targeted specifically to support people who are facing mental health conditions, and particularly in the context of suicide. In the Goldstein electorate, we have the Headspace Clinic in Bentley and one just on the border with Higgins in Elstonwick. And Headspace does a particularly important role in getting to the community, and particularly marginalised sections of the community, to provide mental health care and support. Whether it's people of different ethnic backgrounds and culturally and linguistically diverse communities, or people of diverse sexual orientations or gender identities, of course amongst the general community, working with local schools, local mental health practitioners and local support staff so that they can get support. And we thank them every day for the important work that they did. And during that lockdown last year, we actually did on the Goldstein page, and if you need, or the Tim Wilson MP Facebook page, so if you need to go back and have a look at it again, a video working through local mental health supporters and from Headspace in Bentley, the assistance that they can provide to young people who are struggling at this difficult time. And we may even repost that as a consequence of the present lockdown in case people need that assistance and support. Of course, government plays a critical role as part of that conversation, and one of the leading contributions that's been made, particularly throughout last year's lockdown, but also continuing into today, has been the significant package that's been provided by the Morrison government to support people with mental health needs during this time. and hopefully they won't be needed further, but it's critical that they're available for those who need them.
Order.